Good morning, Koopa. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good day. Appreciate you guys being patient while I get this set up. Just getting the last details done, and I'll be good to go. How are you doing today, Koopa? Good morning. Good morning to you too. For me, it's afternoon, but good morning enough, right? I'm down with it. It's a rainy day here in New England, so it's slow going, but we're getting there bit by bit. I was just going to quickly mute everything on my phone so I don't have that pop up. PM for me. Nice. Late o'clock. Late o'clock. I appreciate you joining me for it. Like that, we're all set. It's been a bit of a morning for me. I actually just got back from a meeting. The meeting went great. The traffic did not. I got caught in traffic and delayed by quite some time. So, finally home, finally done. I can now delete literally everything that's irrelevant to me on my desktop and get towards it. So, without further ado, I'm going to do a little bit of little preamble here. So, for those of you who are new to the channel, let's start it off with a little... Let's move this over here. Oh, of course. I see what happened. Too being stupid. There we go. That's better. Much better. Much better. Alright, so let's kick things off. Hello everyone, I'm the last Omnitech, your favorite robot American, and welcome to our little art stream today. Today I'm going to be doing art from my tabletop role-playing game, Summoner the WILD Hunt. I've been working on this for quite some time, actually. The funny thing is, Summoner is actually based off an existing tabletop role-playing game I make, it's Legacy First Flight. And in fact, it uses the exact same core system. The Legacy core system. I've been making Legacy pretty much by myself for 20 years. That's why you haven't heard of it, because I haven't released it yet. It's still in alpha, tested on stream. You guys are on my Unicorn Head Studios, so Unicorn Head Studios YouTube. You see that every other Saturday. Summoner uses the exact same core rule system, but it's been built from the ground up from that core rule system onwards to be a primal fantasy monster taming TTRPG or tabletop role-playing. Very excited to work on this eventually. And let's just pop in very fast. There. So, I do have a little bit, very quickly to be completely honest with you all though. I am very much getting by bit. But I'm sort of struggling a tad today. Blame it on a million things, but it's been a very demoralizing past 24 hours. I'm okay. I'll be okay. But it is going to color my mood a little bit. So, today might be a little more mellow and quiet than usual. I hope that's okay. Hope you all appreciate that. I'm sure you've all had rough days. There's no day to fix and reset. Today, that's me. Just lower the music a bit. Thank you. I appreciate that. See, it's a live stream. It wouldn't be a live stream if I didn't, you know, have some fuck-ups here and there. I appreciate you. How's that, Koopa? We good now? We copacetic? Are we copacetic? That feels terrible to say. I am so sorry. That was a terrible pun. Hopefully that's a little more manageable. Again, audio check, 1 2 1 2. Are we doing good? Yeah, perfect. Hell yeah. Alright, so, moving forward. I have been doing okay. It's just been a bit stressful for me. So, as long as we keep it relatively low-key today, I'll be a-okay. Now, that said, I'm willing to field any questions anybody has, whether that be about my webcomics, or whether that be about the tabletop role-playing system. Please feel free to ask. Today I'm going to be trying to draw a little bit of the people from my TTRPG system. But let's give a quick little brief of what Summoner the Wild Hunt is. And I'll do that through art assets, because I have plenty of those. Alright. So, let's go over here. Let's go and open a couple... Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. Definitely been a morning. It's definitely that kind of morning for sure. And that should be everything I need. Cool. Alright. So, Summoner, as a setting, is set in a fantasy world nothing like ours. Summoner instead exists in a different, more fantastical world. In the beginning, there was only Olan, the Godtree. A great thing crawling its way through the stars, stretching its tendrils to find life, to find anything but itself. And after searching for eons, it found nothing. And so, out of sorrow and loneliness, it created the first spirits. Arde, spirit of fire. Sepu, spirit of earth. Vena, spirit of air. And Hela. Sepu, Hela, the spirit of water. These 4 spirits were its children, and it extended unto them its covenant, that so long as they played within the shade of its branches, they would know no suffering, and they would be at peace. And its children used their powers of elemental might, of fire and water and wind and earth, to craft the world of Olan, to create continents, to breathe fire beneath its plates, to create life and oceans and breezes, and to herald in all things. But eventually they themselves grew lonely and realized that only they were able to play with themselves. They couldn't play with anyone else. And so they decided that they would make new life, and in doing so, they sacrificed their own to create it, breaking themselves into billions of little shards of magic and willpower, and scattering themselves to the winds. Where their will landed, created creatures of will, creatures like us. And where their power lay, rose up elemental spirits, also known as spirits divine. And so Olan extended its covenant to its second children. So long as you lay within my branches, you will be at peace. Unfortunately, spirits of will are driven to do the impossible, and sometimes the impossible even when it is terrible. No one knows exactly how it played out, but spirits of will tried to cage their god, to enslave it into their service. And Olan, disappointed and sorrowful, told its children that it could no longer support them. It broke its covenant and forged a new one with the elemental spirits who were once the spirits of will's keepers. Unto you I give my power, and you are to be their jailers. Now we live in a world where spirits of will are scattered between settlements in little areas known as glades, where Olan withholds its wrath. But beyond, elemental spirits divine view spirits of will as creatures to be harried and preyed upon. And so, in Summoner, you play a spirit of will, able to commune with the spirits divine, to craft bonds with them and break them from Olan's mandate, with the hope that maybe balance may one day be restored. So yeah, that, my friends, is basically, that's the setting. So, this is a tabletop role-playing game setting, a monster taming setting. So if you're familiar with Digimon, Monster Rancher, Pokemon, that kind of thing, it's in that same flavor, that same vibe. The setting is a little distinct. In this particular instance, it is a high fantastical setting, but a primal setting. So less of Pathfinder or D&D, where it's very fantastic, almost steampunky in a way. There's that arcane punk energy everywhere. In Summoner, instead, it's rather more of an Iron Age setting. You play as a spirit of will, which are normal mortals, basically. And you capture spirits divine, in this case, these powerful elemental creatures. Your job is to forge bonds with them, and in doing so, free them from Olan's mandate. They gain complexity and the ability to think for themselves, to grow beyond themselves, and we gain divine might, the elemental magics we otherwise can't wield. And as a summoner, your job is to maintain the balance of nature between Olan and its creatures. So as far as the villain goes, I am intentionally avoiding a grand, overarching villain. I feel like the struggles within this world are enough. It's an Iron Age setting. Famine, struggle, flood, disaster. There's so many things that can happen. Beyond that, the spirits themselves play the role of the traditional monsters, as it were. Not only are they more like animalistic, and generally speaking, are they more aggressive, they have a mandate to keep us caged within our territory, known as glades. These glades are basically not big. They're like only a couple kilometers across at most, and if at any point the balance of nature within them is thrown off by pollution, overexploitation, or just too many people living in it, a glade can collapse. And when that happens, spirits divine will flood in and slaughter everything. Don't think of the spirits as Pokemon. That's not a good comparison. Think of them more like angels, or incredibly powerful divine spirits. That is what they are. And so as a result, they are the primary antagonists in the setting, but they themselves are victims. Spirits are, in fact, caged in their purpose. Originally, they used to be our keepers. These would be the ones that would make our lives better. Unfortunately, our betrayal has forced Olan to change their role, and now they use their divine magic to basically keep us in cages. Summoners are those who have the ability to extend their willpower to other creatures, to spirits divine, granting them independence, granting them freedom of thought through a symbiotic link. And in doing so, it gives them the ability to turn away from their god's orders, to choose for themselves, to become something greater. They gain personality and individuality, and we gain their power in exchange. So, that doesn't mean there's not the possibility for other, darker, stranger villains, for sure. Mortals, of course, are always a threat. There's always people out there seeking to exploit nature or the spirits, to slay or to kill, to poach, to those who would decimate the environment around them, and thus throw the balance of nature out of line, which can lead to glade collapse and get thousands of people killed. And so these people need to be fought. There's darker things as well, and at some point I can't wait to run this game on stream. I have some really fun ideas, but it gives you a general concept. Now, as far as the actual setting goes, you have your summoners. Now, summoners vary in flavor and shape, but again, we're talking Iron Age at most. Copper, Bronze Age is probably more accurate for a lot of the world, and a lot of it's still in a Stone Age. It's not like I can build a massive factory or something. It's not really possible in a setting where you have only a couple of kilometers, and if you exploit the world too hard, the world exploits you. So as a result, it's not uncommon for a lot of summoners to wield wood weaponry, stone weaponry, simple iron tools, and they tend to move quickly, so heavy armor isn't abundant. It exists, but it's not common. Leather, fur, lamellar, and the odd bit of metal. That's more likely what you're going to be dealing with, at least as a summoner anyhow. So, going from there, we can start talking about what summoners actually, how they're sort of broken down mechanically in game. Summoners come in three flavors: invokers, callers, and keepers. These three classes, vaguely, are what define how summoners use their power. All summoners have the ability to establish a bond with spirits, but how they express that bond, that's really what sets them apart. If you're looking for the more traditional Pokemon, Digimon, Tamer style setting, where it's you and your buddy walking around on the ground, those are keepers. Keepers have the ability to field more than a single one. They literally fight alongside their spirits. Again, you're not just going out there throwing Pokeballs and having your adorable stuffed animals fighting each other. No, in this setting, you learn to fight spirits with tooth and claw and steel and blade. You had to defend yourself. And as a result, keepers do that all the time. Even after they make their first connections with spirits, they always fight alongside of them, hurting them, guiding them, allies. Callers, on the other hand, become their spirits. Literally morph into them Animorph style. They're pretty fun. So, in a way, callers embody them physically. They become spirits and synergistically merge into the same shape. This is a caller mid-transformation. And finally, invokers. Invokers channel the elemental might of spirits through their corporeal physical form. AKA, they are people with basically spirits ghost riding them, lending them arcane power. It makes them incredibly powerful, but it also makes them incredibly vulnerable. Out of all of them, the Keeper is immortal with friends. The Invoker is immortal with ghost friends. And the Caller becomes something not immortal at all. Caller's flavor is cool, not gonna lie. I very much like all of them. They all have a different vibe to them. They're all very much driven by a different way to establish a connection with your spirit. And for the record, they all have different ways to store them. This isn't quite Pokemon or Digimon where there's a unified method, Pokeballs or Digivices. Or really, I don't even think there was a thing in Monster Hunter. I think it's just your buddies hung out with you and you just kind of, they kind of just hung out in your shadow. In this particular case, each of them have a different manner of doing so. All summoners find a way to commune with their spirits uniquely. So some will create little lanterns like this that their spirits are housed within. Others will carve gourds and create little homes or little shrines for their spirits to embody. Still others will weave elemental magic into cloth and use that cloth in order to summon their spirits as a devotional device. Everyone has a different way of doing it. There's no invalid mechanism by which a spirit can be summoned, or that a spirit is maintained. The only limit you deal with as a summoner is you can only keep 3 on you at any point in time. Some more so than others. Keepers can field up to 3 if they train hard enough. Callers can only ever become 1, but as time goes on, those singular entities they can become are quite powerful, and they can choose between 3 different forms having their 3 different spirits. And invokers can channel only 1 spirit at a time through their body, but again, they can keep basically 3 in reserve. It's a pretty hard rule I've run in the system, but there's a reason for it, and it's to keep balance. Now, there are 4 elemental flavors in Summoner, and then in particular, if I go back up one, should be in the rules concept section. Here we go. So there are 4 elemental types. Technically 5 if we count the mundane. which would be willpower. That's our thing. And for the record, it's not a weak thing. Mundanity is a powerful tool. The ability to be conscious, willful, to exist in the now, is a powerful ability that spirits of will possess, that spirits divine don't. Again, they get something out of their merger with you. It's a relationship. And like a good relationship, it benefits both parties. Now, as we can see, there are 4 elemental cores. Arde of fire, Hela of water, Sepu of earth, and Vena, the wind. Each of these 4 elements, the classical Greek 4, these elements have a simple symbiotic circle of dominance. I guess the proper way to describe it would be predation. Predator and prey. So, going from left to right, fire consumes air. Wind whittles earth. Earth drinks the water, and water drowns fire. Pretty straightforward. Now, if you're not consumed or controlled by one of these other elements, then you're neutral. So fire versus earth, it's not really doing anything in particular. It's a one-to-one. But if you're attacking an element that you're weak to, it has the ability to resist. And if you're attacking an element you're strong, it doubles damage. It's pretty straightforward in terms of mechanics. The mundane, by the way, there's no such thing as resisting that. There's no resistance to mundane attacks, but there's also no magic involved. So this gives us sort of the idea. Now, these 4 elements don't apply to spirits of will. That's us, by the way. We are spirits of will. And for the record, they are not just humans. They can be a lot of things. I'm intentionally leaving it open for players to make their own species. Part of the core rules of this game is actually making the settlement you come from, the glade. And each glade's denizens are different. There are many different species that roam along. So many, I don't want to make them. I want to leave that entirely up to the hands of my players. So if you ever wanted to make a cool species, you could totally do that in this game. Make yourself a glade that behooves them. Sometimes they come from great distances, literally crawling down the roots or the branches of Olan, which can stretch into the sky like space elevators from distant worlds. Others just grew up here. They just happened to spring into existence. Doesn't much matter. What matters is their glade defines them. Even though we're bound by willpower, these elemental forces have some sway over us and how it expresses us. So, as an example, if you come from a mountain range, your glade is, depending on how it works, either going to be, if it's a tall mountain range, lots of wind, wind, earth. If your character's from a volcanic mountain range, on the other hand, fire and earth. And maybe if it's a waterlogged atoll, that'd be water and earth. What if you're from a volcanic chain in the ocean? Well, fire, water. A prairie? Earth, wind. A floodplain? Ooh, interesting. Water, earth. Maybe if you're from a particularly wind-whipped part of the world, something blustery and cold, like England, water, wind. So, these help define your traits and who you are, who you become. This is where we get the equivalent of species from, your modifiers. We don't really have a fixed version because you can make whatever you want. You want to make a goblin? Cool, you can totally do that with these rules. You want to make an elf or a animal creature? Sure, absolutely. Basically, if it would be at home in a, like, I usually would say in a Ghibli film. Ghibli? Studio Ghibli. I will not hear it any other way. Then you would, you'd be able to make it here. That's kind of my goal. Can I ask a question? I don't want to interrupt you. Can animals also get those powers too? Aha, that's a great question. So, in Summoner, there are normal animals in the woods as well as spirits. Animals are mundane. So, you have things like squirrels and moose and birds and fish, and that stuff exists. Spirits divine are magic that take the form of animal-like creatures, usually. But they're not. They're something wholly different. Again, better comparison for them would be more like angels and demons than mortals like us. So, long and short, animals can't gain elemental power. And technically, all creatures born of mundanity can't do that. However, and this is a big but, however, that doesn't mean they can't be shaped by their environment. It's not impossible for an animal to adapt to its environment in this setting. So, you know, fish live in water. You could have mudfish in a water-earth biome. You could have animals that can exist suspiciously close to fire, or be able to perhaps process electricity more efficiently, what have you. Breathe toxic or acidic fumes. The difference is one of them is an actual agent of Olan, and the other is just biology. Hopefully that answered that question for you, Koopa. It's a good question, though. It's an important one. Unlike Pokemon, there are creatures outside of spirits in this setting. You don't have to eat a Tauros burger here. You're good. A Tauros burger. That always freaked me out when I learned that they actually had Tauros burgers. I was very weirded out by that discovery. Like, very, very weirded out. I did not know how to feel about the fact that someone's partner actually might be on your dinner plate. But then again, I imagine there are folks out there that feel that way about dogs being eaten in parts of the world, or cats, what have you. So, yeah, that can be really uncomfortable. I try my best to get around that. Spirits divine are not all the animals. So, today we're going to do a little bit of drawing, like, different examples of species from Summoner, because I've been drawing a lot of human-like spirits of will. Almost everything I've drawn has been very human-like. And I want to try to break away from that a little bit. Go a little bit further out on a limb. I've done some pretty crazy designs in the past, and I'd like to try to dust a couple of other things off and really reclaim some of my designs. Take a chance to sort of get a little further away, you know. So let me take a look here. I should have a couple... I have a couple of species I want to kind of try to rework a little bit for Summoner that I've already used in certain other settings. Namely, if I can ever get this thing to work... It is being weird, and I don't like that. Where are you? Huh. It is being very strange today. Don't like that at all. Okay. It's been a hot minute then. So let's just get to what I can get. Oh, I think I see what's happened. Okay, I see what's happened. So we're going to be using a concept I sort of dabbled with from time to time, which is... here we are. Some of these character designs I've actually used in a Tanria before, but we're going to try to go a little further than that, if we can. As I pop on over to Art Frame. There we go. So I've actually done some other species designs. These are my takes on Ardlings in the setting of a Tanria. I'm going to try to borrow them. I like the idea of them being almost elvish. I think that could be very fun. Likewise, I have my own variety of goblins that I've been working on for a hot minute. And I kind of want to try to, like, you know, reclaim them a little bit. I didn't like that old design. But I've done a couple of, like, concept sketches of gobos. And I kind of want to... there we go. I want to try to reclaim that a little bit. So, we're going to make some concepts of different elemental types and different peoples that might arise from them. So we're just going to do a couple quick doodles here. These are just sort of aesthetic sketches. So there are a couple things that we should probably talk about if we're talking about the basics of how Summoner's, like, culture works for the peoples of Olan. First off, there's a pretty easy way to tell if someone is a Summoner. Rule of thumb, Summoners almost always wear masks. Usually they're carved and they're pretty straightforward. Not every culture does it, but most do. And this is because of the fact that, simply put, it gives them a tactical, practical advantage. In terms of spirits, they identify us by the way we look. And so, in a way, they immediately know, hey, that's not a spirit divine. Thus, I must keep it contained. And it's not a wild animal, so there we go. by wearing a mask, it gives you a very brief, temporary ability to, like, maybe disarm that just a little bit. It can help a tad. Not a lot, but a little bit. Just enough to maybe make a difference. I'm going to go for a nice wide body here. I always given them, like, very thick heads. Very, like, squat bodies. I see what's going on here. There we are. So we're just going to keep things simple. I'm going to try my best to, like, not draw super convoluted animal designs today, or I should say people designs. Just going to keep it very easy. Simple contrapposto poses, if that. Now, when you start the campaigns out, you'll usually have already made your first bond. Though I am, and have been, working on at least in the past, anyway, on a solo journaling game that will let you sort of pick new partners that you would normally not get access to. Your glade determines your first partner, basically. And that's just a simple matter of, hey, I'm somewhere around these elements. Spirits usually tend to coincide with their natural environment. So if I live in an area dominated by water and fire, it's very likely my first spirit will be a water or a fire spirit. My choice. But in that case, in the case of this game, I like the idea of players being able to, like, explore it a little further and actually kind of really find some weird stuff. And yeah, I'm giving them really long arms. I like the idea of my goblins being very lanky. Something very satisfying about a super lanky goblin design to me. Here we go, and then we sort of have our wedge-like head. Then usually I give, like, longer ears. And a slightly more rounded back of the skull. Their necks are usually very thick. I like the idea that they're sort of ripped a little bit, almost like dwarves of fantasy to a degree. I kind of had them sort of filling the same zone as, like, D&D kobolds. They're sort of that same energy. I don't quite give them tails, though. They're not really fully draconic IMO. But again, this is a setting that doesn't have any of those things. So I can sort of make exactly what I want to make. Give them a little snoot on the top of their head here. Give their eyes right there. Cool. That's a start. Those have little bat noses. Kind of like that idea. So, mechanically speaking, you can basically make whatever you want, but I want to make something a little more unique. Yeah, let's do it like that. Get that a little lower. You sort of have the brow coming on. And usually I'll sort of have the lips around here like that. And then all of it kind of comes out to about here. Cool. That works. And we'll sort of have it coming out to like almost a point. Nice. That'll do. We have ourselves a nice thick body. 45, please. Thank you. I'm going to leave this sketchy by intention, because we're just doing quick sketches. Nothing too nuts. Now, one of the other advantages of this setting, unlike Pokemon or Digimon, is that I don't have these spirits being static. Spirits evolve and change as nature and their service with summoners makes them evolve, and you can even have them fuse. Literally, for those of you who play, or like those of you who enjoyed Dragon Ball Z in the day, very much like the earring thing, the fusion dance. It's very much that same kind of energy. Spirits literally can combine their corporeal forms and their souls to create something new and distinct. And so as a result, you can have some really cool combos. This also means you're able to literally tailor spirits to your needs. You can have a spirit that has more than one elemental leaning. In fact, actually, it's kind of almost mandatory at a certain point. If you want to have all 4 elemental leanings in your personal party, you're gonna need to hybridize a spirit or 2. They simply don't naturally come in multiple flavors of elemental power. That's something you have to instill in them. But it is doable. So if you want to have a fire and a water spirit, you could take a fire spirit and a water spirit and have them merge. And the result will be a new creature. One that has traits, character, and physical of both. Again, I borrow a lot of inspiration from, from Jay Cocoon, way back in the day. That was a whole part of the game, was you were able to fuse your monsters together. And I always loved that ability, and I was always sad to see not many others did that. And so, this is kind of my little way of, like, reclaiming it. And then we can go in there. You can sort of round that out a little more. I'm going to hit all this with a nice, quick overlay. Make it a little stronger. 45? That feels better. Yeah, 45 works. Likewise also, spirits themselves carry within them the ability to literally transform elemental power into a physical substance. That physical substance can be harvested and used to create magic items and equipment. You can literally use this material to create things that normally could not exist. In the setting, the term iron and steel have different meanings. If you have a weapon that's mundane, it's often referred to as iron. If you have a steel weapon, that means you've used divine power to create a unique and elementally charged material. That would be divine steel. It's a big practical purpose as to why summoners exist. They literally are the only place you can find this stuff. See if I can open this up here. There we go. So, the term is quintessence, for those of you who are curious. Quintessence is what you're able to acquire. Let's go over here. Let's start actually drawing on this. Go. So we got ourselves a nice little design here going. For the record also, because this session was a little more impromptu than I wanted it to be, thanks to being delayed, at the moment the music is not available in the links, but if you're watching this on a rewatch later, the music will be. This currently is The Forest Beckons by Technoaxe. I believe so. Yes, it should be. Yeah, The Forest Beckons You by Technoaxe. I will have the links to all the music, as always, available in the video description. Just give me like an hour after this drops and it'll all be up to date. After all, I want the people who make this awesome music to get their rewards. All of this is available and easy to use. It's pretty great. I love me some royalty-free music by some incredible creators. We have Scott Buckley, Technoaxe, and also a little bit of Essinger on here too, who has done an awesome job of remastering a lot of the old Bionicle music from the old Bionicle Flash game. Which is free to use, by the way. It's not the original music. They had to literally recreate it. So anyone who's out there listening, don't get your pants in a twist. It's not actually copied from the game. They had to make it fresh. And let's make it a little more squared out. Cool. So we got ourselves a very simple, vague goblin design. Got our eyes. Let's make this a fire goblin. I kind of like the idea of it. Maybe these guys are from a fiery... I figure like a volcanic region. That would work. So as a result, likely a fiery stare. No, I want to make it a little bit less intense. That literally makes them look like the evilest thing I've drawn in a while. Let's do a green set of eyes instead. My god. Yeah, a volcano. That works. They can still be from a volcanic region. We'll just make their eyes a little bit less, brutal to observe. There we go. Okay, now let's get the rest of them sort of splashed up. Use magma rocks to pray to the fire god. In that case, that would be the Great Spirit Arde. Arde, the Keeper of Might. I believe I actually have a whole thing on that. On my... Yeah, I actually have a whole thing on that in my Tumblr. If I can open the dang thing. There we go. My god, it's so hard to navigate some of this stuff sometimes. I'm going to zoom all the way down. Should be in the summoner section. Here we go. Going all the way down to my world 52. Here we are. Seppu, first of my kin, where I stand, stone splits and the ground rises. Vena, second of my kin, where I dance, the sky clears and the winds rise. I am Arde, third of my kin, where I strike, the world is born anew and fire rises. That would be the one you're looking for. And because I feel like Hell has gotten short shrift a lot on this stream because I keep ducking the name, I'm Hela, last of my kin, where I see all things revealed and water flows. Hela is the god of water. So in this case, we're looking at a culture that has grown up between Arde and Seppu. Literally, whenever you're talking about any of these settlements in Summoner, they literally exist as go-betweens of two places where these spirits have met. That's why these glades exist. So, historically speaking, this is a place where likely Arde and Seppu wrestled at some point in the past and had a grand old time doing it. Let's do this as an overlay as well. Okay, and let's try to darken that a tad, shall we? There we go. I try my best to add, like, kind of splotchy effects on some of these guys. I think it helps to create a pretty cool, like, practical effect of coloration. Most of this is going to be hidden, because these guys wear clothes. But it's always fun to sort of play around with it. Here we go. Cool, cool. That works. Like in a shrine, I can see that. Let's give a slightly more aggressive, rocky, and angular look to these guys. We can have a little more fun with them. Kind of like the idea of them being a little more jagged and aggressive, sort of by design. As would behoove a group of spirits of will who grew up in the shadow of Arde, who is famed for wanting to wrestle. Almost going for like a Goron kind of vibe for these guys a little bit. If you're anyone out there is a Zelda fan, you're familiar. And if you're not, goofy rock people. Goofy, lovely rock people. Proud warriors, almost dwarven in a way. There we go. Get a couple ridges on here. Ruffles like ridges. And we're going to zoom in. 10% should do fine. Same thing here. Cool. We're going to save this. Let's make that 65. And then we can sort of pull that up. Sort of do the same thing here. And we can sort of pull that there too. Cool. So we got ourselves a pretty quick design. That's way too dark. 25%, please. Okay, thanks. Cool. I kind of like that. We got ourselves a nice rocky kind of look to them. Gonna kind of straighten the lips out a little bit here. There we go. Look at that little gobber. That little dude. Little goober. Little griblin. Little grablin. Very gremlin. Kind of dig them. I dig them. Goblins are kind of my vibe, weirdly. I've never had a chance to really play one, and one day I will. One day I will play a goblin. At one point I was going to play a dwarf with a more Maori-esque bent. But maybe I'll do a goblin in that sort of vibe. In that, like, Islander vibe. And I say this as someone who, like, more of like a Puerto Rican, really, Islander vibe. And I say this as someone who is actually Puerto Rican and can do that. I don't want to appropriate culture from my tabletop role-playing game experiences. That's not cool. Cool. And we can just sort of take this, give our knuckles sort of that simple, brutal, very effective kind of vibe. There we go. So we've got some simple gobos. Little big guy. Yeah, he's a little squat dude. Alright, let's give him some clothes. My mind's like, what's a good name for a goblin? Bokoblin! And then I realized, oh, that's Legend of Zelda. Let's go with, I'm not gonna call him a gremlin. That's a little mean. I don't want to call them goblins either. Well, we'll just call them, call them squat folk. Earthkin? Stoutkin. We'll go with Stoutkin. Stoutkin works for me. Stoutkin of Volcanoes. Volcanic Stoutkin. Volcanic Stoutkin. There we go. Moglin. Schmoltoes. He got Schmoltoes. Schmol. Alright, let's give him some clothes. So, let's give our little dude here some clothes. Or dudette. You know, keep it gender neutral here. We don't know. I don't judge. It's not my place to judge. So, clothing's going to be pretty straightforward, I figure. Intentionally keep it simple, drapey, easy to wear. I believe I said 65, but sure, we'll go with that. So we're going with very simple Iron Age clothes. Not many hems of the modern sense. It's not really a thing. Sewing machines don't exist yet. So anything that's made and worn has to be literally sewed by hand. Woven. And because of the fact that this is a setting where keeping large stretches of land for farm animals is more difficult, which, for the record, spirits divine don't usually prey on them, but they certainly don't stop other animals from preying on them, so yeah, keep your animals, like, close to the glade, but not so far that you can't access them. Here we go. We can sort of do that, and they can sort of reach a little knot in the middle. There we go. We'll have ourselves some nice cloth wraps around here. As far as spants go, I want something simple and loose. Simple, tied off. There we go. We can have like a simple drapery cloth over the middle. And that can be tied into that sash. Now, colors in Summoner have a lot of meaning to them. You don't just pick a random color. Colors are tied both to what you can get in terms of dye, but also what elemental leaning you might be. What glade are you representing? Glades are usually named for their environment. So, as an example, tall water. You're at the top of a waterfall. Will that be wind water? Or say Fire Peak. Easy. That's a volcano. Stuff like that. I think there's one... I actually did a map of a Summoner region at some point. I think it's in the, like, concepts, is it? I know I did it somewhere here. It's not in the rules. It might be in the rules concepts. Summoner logo. Summoner sketchpad? Yeah, it's the codex. It's in the codex, I guess. Oh, huh, I guess it is in there. Where are you, sir? I had you. You were here. And I'm annoyed by this. Oh, it's the Atlas. Duh. Atlas. So, anyway, Black River as an example for a glade. The settlement of Torch, Fire Earth, stuff like that. Pretty easy. This would be a very simple painted map used in like the setting. Something very easy to work with. Nothing too crazy. We're going to close this. Where are you? Almanac Glades. Here we go. We're going to call this Peoples. Okay. Alright, so let's get a little more cloth done here. I want to go with a very simple kind of like design here. And they'll likely wrap their forelimbs, at least in part. Just to help them sort of get by. Cool. All right, so we got that. Let's get a little bit of green going on this. I want a nice pale green. Pale green mixed with red. Let's actually start with red. Let's start with like a deep earthy red. Kind of like that nice sort of contrast there. We have the red cloth wraps. By the way, this music currently, if anyone is interested in using it, is from Punch Deck by the name of Longing. Very fun one. I actually very much like this song. There you go. So we got some red cloth wrapped around there. Hey, Paul. Good to see you, sir. How you doing today? Everyone say hi to my incredible friend, the incomparable Paul Ampersand. Owner and operator of Ampersand D20. Also known as Ampersand Studios. Also known as Ampersamples. Also known as one of my favorite people in space. How you doing? We just doing a little doodling. Having a little time, making some dudes. Wanted to make some characters for Summoner. So here we are. We're going to go to green again. I'm going to start working with that green. I want a nice pale green. Like a pea soup green. I love this big boy. I like this big boy too. He's got a very good energy about him. He looks like the kind of person that would invite you over for a drink. And then buy you something that doesn't taste terrible, but probably doesn't taste great. And then talk with you significantly about how things are doing in the mines. So I like the idea that their clothing is literally like stitched together. Just like whatever scraps they could find. Let's hit this with a 10% overlay. Should make it 25%. Should make it 45%. Let's go stronger. 75%. Fine. Fine, we'll do it that way. Let's make this a little beigeier. So there we go. Super simple designs. Now, eventually my goal is when I'm done with Summoner and with Legacy that I will release them to the public for a pittance if my Patreon's doing well. Which, speaking of, you can check the video description. You'll find my Patreon there. Please subscribe. I am a small creator. This channel is not monetized. I'm far too small for that. So any support you guys can throw on me on Patreon helps a lot. Truly it does. Likewise also, please subscribe. Share this video. Do what you can to help grow this little enterprise I've got going. Every little bit helps, especially in the beginning. go. Alright, cool. Also, for those of you who are my patrons out there, I want to thank each and every one of you. You're all incredible, especially the past couple of days with my brain fighting me and being so fuzzy. I really appreciate all your patience. I've been resting, trying to recuperate so I can get back onto the webcomic grind and have that next webcomic out shortly. I feel like I'm not very far behind because I actually gave myself an intentional bit of wiggle room, but still, I want you guys to get what is yours and what is coming your way sooner rather than later. There we go. So we got ourselves some nice clothes on this dude. I want to add a little shadow under there as well. Let's get in there. Add some shadow in places where it would be. Add some shadow in on those wraps, because they need to have a little three-dimensionality to them. Basically, wherever these wraps go over another wrap. And wherever the lighting is coming from, basically. Cool. So we got ourselves a little goblin. Finally catch a stream. Greetings, Puerto Rico. Hey, Calvin, good to see you. Welcome aboard. Good to have you. Good to have you. I feel like this guy's not done. We need more decoration on him. I want something a little more fantastical for this guy. First off, let's give him some face paint. I'm a huge proponent of face paint. As a rule of thumb. It's gonna be body. How you doing today? Let's go with a little bit of... How's that look? Okay, that's okay. Oh, you. That's much better. So let's put this at 25%. And we'll go from there. We'll actually do it as an overlay. 65%. That works. And then we can just sort of take that, do the same thing on this side. A little further over, actually. I think that might be a little better. And then we'll have this sort of coalescing below. kind of want to give him like that kind of little look there, like this guy spends a little time painting himself up. Can you add a gem on his little knot he has over there? Oh, you mean like right there? Absolutely, I think that's a good call. We'll do like a hammered piece of brass, I think. I think that's fair. Let's see. Have you already made orcs? Not for Summoner. I do my best to, again, like, part of Summoner's whole thing is you can make whatever species you want. I don't have hard species rules in the system. It isn't like Legacy, where I have 8 bespoke sapient species you can play as. This game is more of a build the settlement you're from, and then you can make whatever fantastical, whimsical species you want out of it using those rules. So it's kind of a build your own species experiment. It's been quite fun. But I haven't made orc equivalents yet. I have in Etanria, which is my other fantasy setting of old. But really, they just sort of look like dads. This is basically made a species of dads. Of, like, middle-aged looking people. But I absolutely could at some point. I guess the closest I would have would probably be spirits. That would probably be the equivalent of, like... Oh, God, it probably would be the big one. See if I can find them. Yeah. Like these big guys here. Or probably, I guess technically I'd also have the Arcane Spirits Divine. The Efreet? The Efreet are probably the other thing we have that's, like, close to orcs in this setting. They're actually Spirits Divine, so some of the spirits are actually meant to, like, bind to your service. They're some of the monsters you would tame. But they're very fun. Brute force, humanoid, ogreish, really fun species. I believe they're called, yeah, I believe I call them Afriti at the moment. I've been toying around with a different name because the word Afrit actually has multiple meanings, and yeah. But I think Afrit is what I'm going with for the moment. I'd like to recommend some pig-faced orcs because those guys need more representation if you can. Ah, pigums. Okay, yeah, we can absolutely do that. I like the idea of that. I like something a little more rounder. Because we have a lot of tall, like, triangle boys. We'll go with a rounder boy. Sort of bokoblin-y, almost. Again, thinking of Zelda here. So let's go with a couple more marks. I like the idea of this dude, for whatever reason, literally marks his hands. Like his individual fingers with this stuff. He comes from volcanic range, so maybe for him it's kind of like sunscreen to help protect against the heat. You know, when you're rooting around in the mines all day, having a little protection doesn't hurt. And that can sort of just go upwards. I don't like that. A little too abstract. Let's go with something simpler. By simpler, I mean we'll just work in the fire emblem. So each of the elements in Summoner has a very simple pictograph worked into it. And for fire, you'll see it a lot. Fire has Arde's sigil. Always hovering over the top. That almost claw-like shape. A very abstract vision of flame. So we're kind of going with that today. But yeah, so if that's the case, then pig-like orcs. I can work with that. So if that's the case, then we're probably going with... I'd want to say water would be interesting. I kind of like the idea of water. When I was in Orlando, the place I saw the most pigs was actually in the swamp. And people don't really think of that, but yeah, they absolutely did exist in the swamp. So I kind of think we'll do that. There we go. And now I can just go in here and clean this up. Kind kind of like that. That very simple design there. And I'm just going to go in here fast. Then we're just going to have one of these over the collarbone, and another one of these going sort of downwards. There we go. Something simple and easy to work with. Yeah, that works. That works fine, actually. I like that. So it gives a little more complexity to the face paint. This dude wakes up and he probably paints it on him like once a month. Probably more like a berry stain. And it just sort of sticks around until he has to reapply it. A water version of the same guy? I feel like that'll be our orky version. But we absolutely can. Again, the big thing with these guys is they are, as all creatures of Olan, adapted to their environment. So this is a creature of will. This is one of many creatures of will. Where, you know, elemental spirits literally wear their power on their sleeve. Like, I mean, are you ever going to mistake this guy here for that guy? Absolutely not. Never, ever, ever. Never. No way in hell. Also, if we're going to give the actual scale, probably something closer to this. That's probably how tall they are compared to each other, more or less. That feels about right, yeah. Not even close. Large McHuge, as the phrasing goes. So I like the idea of doing like the watery pig goblin version of this guy. So we'll say this guy here, Volcanic Stoutkin. This is gonna be inking. The urge to do a lot of elemental stuff with like the individual spirits of will is very strong, but I need to resist it. They are mundane. That's their whole thing. We're tied to the elements, we're not beholden to them. So in this case, let's just get a little more of that clothing. I'm going to do a quick hammered piece here. Now, whenever I do brass, I always have a fun time, because basically you start with a brown and then you hammer upwards. So you literally hammer. I'm going to do this at 75%. Not as an overlay, as an actual normal thing. Here we go. Then we can take that, bring it upwards. Make that closer to 75. Simple piece of hammered metal. And then we're just going to make it a little brighter. And get a yellow in there. A very vibrant yellow in the edge. Just to really sell this super metallic-y kind of sheen. And to do that, you usually want to go with like the strongest possible color. There we go. That reads as an actual button. Like as a little metal button. That works. And we'll take like that same olive green we got, and we'll use that for the string. Actually, hold on. I can make these metal too. Now, metals in Summoner are, again, very rare. Because of the fact that people are confined to glades, they're not able to spend a whole bunch of resources on digging up metal. Turns out, if you have to live within the territory that Olan gives you, which is only like 2 kilometers wide, that's not really enough for, like, strong industrial mining. And if you do that level of mining, which you theoretically can, depending on where you are, you probably are going to get kicked out of your glade. A bunch of spirits will invade and kill you. So, as a result, metal's not easy to come by. It's mostly made by using quintessence gathered from slain spirits to use magic to make the equivalent. So in short, this dude here would be probably pretty well off. Like, his village has got to be really well off. If this guy here literally can afford buttons... This guy can afford buttons and ringlets. This guy's wealthy. Like, you know, by whatever equivalent Stone Age there would be. Whatever equivalent Iron Age wealth you can think of, this guy's probably got it. They probably make their living trading actual metal, I'd figure, or stone. Things refined from the earth. So we're probably looking at, like, say, reagents, sulfur, acid, pumice, simple stuff that can be easily rendered, relatively speaking. Obsidian. Obsidian's incredibly valuable. Anything with a surgically sharp edge, that would be almost impossible to come by in this setting, so... Obsidian would be a very, very sought-after thing. There we go. Okay, cool. Got ourselves a little bokoblin. A little stoutkin. Let's see. I had a settlement open in the Atlas. That's the settlement of Torch. Let's call it, Fire Peak. We'll just call him a Fire Peak Gobbo. That works for me. So I'm just going to go over here. Have that at 85. Let's do it actually like this. A little too short. Ah, fuck it. Fire Peak. Stoutkin. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to actually make the species here very quick using the rules because we have them. They're actually not that hard to use. So mechanically speaking, in terms of summoners and making your own glade, you choose your elemental leanings. So obviously elemental leaning of fire and earth. So in this case, we're going... Ooh. Fire. And earth. Sources of might and endurance. Let's see. Next we choose an extra trait, and I kind of have a couple of cool ones. So let's go to our traits here. So we have fire, flame tempered, and probably in this case, stone scrambler. So I'm going to use... Ooh. So flame tempered. Which basically means these guys don't take fire damage unless it's supernatural. Flame tempered, and I'll just make that one of them. And then over here, as for the other one, we'll make that Stone Scrambler. Which means they basically have a climb speed. Let's fix that lower one there. Cool. So we have those elemental leanings. Fire Peak Stoutkin. Feels good. Cool. So we have ourselves a species from Summoner right out the rip. Been a hot minute since I've actually done this. I should probably open up... I think I have a doodle I did recently. Yes, I did. I'm just going to go over here and just borrow my watermark. Don't mind me. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm going to close balance because it's not in balance, it's not in armor. It's in peoples. Here we go. Wait. Beautiful. And we'll put it right up here, so it's almost impossible to remove easily. Perfect. I dig it. Our boy. You got a boy. I'm going to do one more doodle. Because I kind of want to do a big orc, since we talked about a pig-nosed orc, and I kind of want to give that a shot. So, Kelvin, I'm going to give that a run. So we're going to start with our body. We're going to duplicate this. And we're going to call this one... We need a creature that, in this case... The usual traits of orcs are strength and endurance. So again, fire something. I want water in this. That's actually intelligence. So let's go, actually in this case, earth. Let's go water, earth. Swampy. Swampy works. Swamp pigs. Okay. So in this case, we'll go fenfolk, and there's a word for it. Porcine fenfolk. What would they call themselves? I don't want to go with Hoglin. And they live near volcanoes, so lava might contain some metals too. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, usually it's a cross between two elements, right? So that's how it always works. And for the record, again, we can do any of these. This is my take on, like, immediately I wanted to make a goblinoid. Cool. It's a fire-earth combo that I can do really easy that makes my immediate interpretation of what we would call a classical goblin. So in this case, earth, water, we're going to go with more of like a swimming creature. So, think in an island chain. Most likely island or swampy. Mangrove walkers of some kind. So, fenfolk foragers. We'll go with that. That feels like a good way to start. So let's go up here. I'm going to remove the name. I'm going to keep the same color because I have a green here. Let's make a similar blue. Here we go. We'll go with that. We can just sort of... Aha, I see what happened there. That's interesting. Okay. I just figured out how to use that tool. Hey, hey. Specifically lets me call out a single color. I like that. Okay, so we're going to call these guys Fenfolk Foragers. I don't want to go with Thieves. That seems a little too mean. A little too mean for my taste. Because I'm trying to think, like, would they call themselves that? I don't think they'd call themselves that. Fenfolk Forager. Like, that at least has a little dignity to it, you know? Like, I could see someone being like, yeah, no, I'm a Fenfolk Forager. I'm proud of my lineage. My people have existed here for eons. And then, you know, it would work a little more, I would say. So if we're going with that, let's go with a slightly more rounded shape to their stuff. And then we can go with an interlocking pattern that works pretty well for them. Actually, a little too much. Hold on, I have a better idea. We'll use the water. We'll use the earth again, and combine that symbol with the water symbol. And this should work a little better. There we go. That gives us a pretty easy visual language to work with. I kind of like that. So it gives it like almost a vine being wrapped around with water. I kind of dig that, actually. Almost like roots of a tree, which is kind of what we're going for here. Yeah, cool. So that works. We can get to our clothing now. Let's just erase all that. Let's erase our inking. Let's erase our body. God, that feels weird and unpleasant to do every time, but here we are, doing what must be done in the name of art. Okay, so let's get for a nice, big, wide body. I want this dude to be large McHuge. So let's start with a large, hulky body. Little more in proportion than what we had for the goblins. Just a little bit more dad bod. We're going to go with a pig nose up here. Some ears. Let's do a floppy ears. Kind of like that idea. That gives us a good aesthetic. We can sort of work around that a little more. There we go. We got ourselves our really thick dad bod. And give ourselves a nice, big, wide body here. I'll give it a little, like, slightly shorter legs, but not, like, as short as a goblin. Again, I'm kind of going with the, this dude is what all guys in their 40s and 50s end up looking like if they take care of themselves. Barrel-chested, usually. This dude does his, this dude eats his Wheaties. Legs are still a little squatter, but not as extreme a distinction as, like, the goblins. Here we go. Cool. So we got ourselves a good baseline to go with here. Then we can sort of just take that. We got our nice rounded belly here. We got a real dad bod going on. I'm digging that. As a man swiftly developing his own dad bod, I am starting to appreciate the aesthetics of a good dad bod. Alright, so we got this. Let's round that out a little more. Now, I like the idea of having, like, something flowy. This is an aquatic creature. And going by the traits that we have frost-clad water breather, a wave strider. I kind of like these guys are just good swimmers, honestly. Just ripped swimmers. I mean, look at that body. I don't know if you've ever known anybody who's a little on the larger side, but who could swim. Being on the larger side does not prevent you from swimming. In fact, actually, it oftentimes makes you float better. So it really can. Like, as long as you have the upper body strength to, like, do it, yeah, you're good. So let's see. I want to do something simple. We'll go with, like, a simple little horn. I like the idea of a single horn. Almost like an Oni, kind of, a little bit. Got ourselves that snoot. That snoot is important. So let's go with, like, that being the ridgeline of their face. Have ourselves that ripped dad bod. Utterly stacked dad bod. Kind of like the idea of this guy holding something. Like, just having a hand down on this. Maybe he's, like, holding a basket or something, or like a caber. There we go. Yeah, we'll go with, like a bundle of logs or something. If these guys are foragers from the forest or the swamps, they're probably getting by, like, selling timber or fish. I can see that. That works. Okay. So now we've got ourselves a basic body design. Let's start honing it in a little bit. Okay, we're going to make it so that the ears are a little bit more interesting in that way. Let's sort of pull that down a little more. Here we go. Good, good, good. Let's make our guy here a little more ripped and sort of even out those shapes a little more. going to sort of pull this down a little more so there's a little more definition between the upper body and the head. I want these arms to still be comically large. Like, these dudes are big. Beautiful. So let's get the rest of this body plan going then. Then you get into sort of like the armpits, starting to look good. Thank you. Yeah, honestly, sketching is really fun because you get to sort of work out all the shapes and the design language very quickly. So you get to these really decent sketches really fast, and it gives you a lot to hone in on. So under here, we're going to have the sort of ear come up a little bit. There we go. So we're going to have the left side of the body more in shadow than the right. We're going to have our dad bod get a little shape around the Speedo area. Don't worry, he'll be wearing pants. Not all of them have to wear pants, but I kind of want this one to wear pants. Also because I kind of want to be able to put this on, to keep this up on YouTube. So, our boy gonna wear pants. No shade against those of you who are naturalists and want your pigs to be naturalists. That's fair. I'm not going to draw that on stream today. That's for you and your imaginations. That's between you and your fur affinity commissioner. Not me. Never any shade. Never going to throw shade for someone's... Never going to yuck someone's yum, but not on here. Not on this platform. Alright, bit by bit we're getting there. Gonna kind of give a little bit more of like a shade on that side of the snoot. Okay, let's start carving this away now with a little bit of white. Actually, let's go with blue. Let's go with a blue. Let's give an earthy green blue shade. We're kind of going for stone. I'm going to try to make these guys a little more like barky, almost. Kind of going for like a water, like a log. Like a mossy log kind of vibe to them, I think. Let's give him a little hair, actually. Oh, let's give him a little hair. Let's give him a little hair. Let's give this pig a little hair. So, it's weird to think about, but a lot of animals actually keep coats of fur because it actually makes them more waterproof. And a lot of swamp hogs actually have that. Like, it looks matted and disgusting, but actually it's doing its job. Its job is to keep all that gross off the animal and keep them warm underwater. So let's go for some hair on the ears too. Mohawk. Oh, but I got the little horn there though. I kind of like the idea of there being hair around it. So maybe going for like a Jean-Luc Picard kind of like going balding sort of look. I kind of like that idea. And we'll definitely give him like a little chin strap there. There we go. We got a dad bod. You gotta have the dad bod fur. Our dude here absolutely manscaped in like the best way possible for him. This is a dude who cares about his body health. Yeah, no, you good, you good. Normally, I would be like, yeah, that would work, but nah. Nah, he got this little horn. Got a little horn. We're going to add arm hair here. So going very piggish on this. So there we go. We got that. That works. I don't want to give him... you know what? Why not? We're gonna give him, like, give him that hair going downwards. We don't need to draw all of it. We'll just leave it there. So that gives us something to work with. Now we can start really, like, honing in on the color. Belly hair. Yeah, exactly. You were already there. You know where I was going. Let's actually get the eyes fast. So we have our eye there. There we go. Let's get our color going now. So we're going for like a darker green, brown kind of. It's like a pea soup kind of shade, I think. Would work well for this guy. So let's try this with an overlay. Oh, I like that. Immediately I like that. Very mossy green. Very mossy green. But we could do blue. And I really kind of want to do blue on this guy. What color, what elemental leaning do they identify with more? I would say they're more water-based from their perspective. Like, for them, Earth is the second. Water is the first. So for them, that means that they're very likely any, like, body paint or anything would be blue. So, yeah, I'll go with a brown. We'll go with a brown. Like a deeper tree-ish brown. Their traditional ham color. There we go, this works. This will provide us with a fair bit of strong contrast to draw when we get to the actual, like, rest of coloration. And we can always futz around with this. It's very dark. Very dark. Almost Goron color here. I'm going to reduce the opacity on that. My god, that is some powerful brown. Brown, bluish gray. I like the idea of modeling them with blue. I think that would work. Modeling them with blue and green. So we're starting with a light ham tan. Then we're just going to add a little extra coloration there, where it's most relevant. Shadings are really good, thank you. Did you all know that I worked with pastel at one point in the past? I used to do pastel painting. Very briefly, for an actual job, when I was working at SeaWorld as a portrait artist. And our portraits were done in pastel. Because unlike paint, pastel doesn't need time to dry. And when you have a bunch of people sitting down going, I want a portrait for my family, and I'm like, you're underneath an actual roller coaster. Like, there's a roller coaster roaring overhead right now, and you have, like, 6 12-year-old kids. You really want to do this? Do you really want to subject your family to this? Okay. And so that became on me to make sure that we went as quickly as possible for the sake of the kids and the families involved. So we didn't have to worry about them killing each other over the rest of the day. So I'm going to go with like a pinky kind of wherever I can see exposed flesh. Yeah, it was pretty fun. I enjoyed that. Okay, so we got that. Let's go with like a... You're like, can you all stay still? Yeah, all the time. And I don't even blame him. It was natural. It happened. Let's go to our splatters again. Let's try something a little different. Yeah, that'll do nicely. Let's go to an overlay here. And I'm going to use that to sort of accrue a little moss on our dude here. So I imagine as a fenfolk, he gets a little bit of moss on him as a matter of course. So that'll give him a nice earthy tone to work off of. Especially around the hands and the forearms. It's where it's going to be the strongest. That and the top of the head. Cool. Yeah, we can work on that. Now we can carve that back a little bit. Use this back here a little more. I realize what I've done. What I've done is I've made a humanoid Poogie from Monster Hunter, and I'm kind of all about that, actually. That works for me. The Poogies were amazing, and I love them. So we're going to make all their fur green, because it'd be probably where they accrue the most, like, moss and stuff. Good Poogie, good Poogie, good Poogie. Okay, so we've got that nice shade of green down. You know, rule of thumb, if for me, at least when I worked over at SeaWorld, I was like, yeah, this was really fun to work there at times. Did not pay good at all. Unfortunately, like, there's a reason I'm not still working there. It did not pay well at all. And it was actually pretty much like, it wasn't fully by commission. I actually got a living wage. It's the only reason I stayed there as long as I did. Well, not a living wage. I got a wage. I got an actual hour-to-hour wage. Because if it was just by commission, I would have never made it. Ever. You are trying to upsell families on, like, framing and stuff and museum-quality frames while they are underneath roller coasters. It's just not happening. It's not even their fault. It's just the nature of it. That stuff's really more there for the folks that are the return... Like, the folks who have the annual passes and stuff, where they're like, yeah, I don't mind spending an hour here. I'd spend an hour here, like, every week. Which was totally a thing. Like, a lot of people don't think about it, but if you live in Central Florida and you work for these companies, you often get, like, pretty solid discounts on gaining access to the parks. So for a lot of folks, like, they actually can just kind of spend a lot of time there on the side, just for the fun of it. And I used to do that all the time, too. Can't really do that anymore. A lot of those parks don't offer good, like, good local rates anymore. So, alas. But it was fun to do while I could. Alright. There we go. So we got the hair there. Boy, really thick. Fat with strength. This dude lifts. If I had to say anything about this species, this little group of creatures lift. These guys lift. Well, there's almost a part of me that wants to give them, like, hooves, kinda? Let's do hooves. Let's try hooves. We'll just make them really stumpy. They're really thick. Mighty. The log GM. Yeah, exactly. This dude gets out every day at the top of the morning, cracks himself 5 eggs into a blender, and then goes and lifts logs all day. And then he gets home, and he eats protein powder, and he capitalizes on his gains. Let's slightly color that up a little more. Let's get to our acrylics. We're going to slightly beige that out a little more. And I'm going to grab this color again, just so I can have it. This is on overlay. We're fixing that onto normal. There we go. And we're just going to do the same thing here. They got these very long, droopy kind of bodies, but I like that. Gives them a certain je ne sais quoi, you know? Again, moss pigs. They're moss pigs. You can sort of get in there and get that furry, green, mossy chest hair going. I'm not going to go any lower than that on the body hair so that I don't have someone flag it. This is what peak performance looks like. Just saying. Dads, you wish you could be. You and the pig your wife told you not to worry about. Okay, there we go. So we're pretty square here. Let's get our pink nose on. Now let's get on the eyes. I want the eyes to be blue. I kind of like the idea... I wonder what... I think porcine eyes are like human eyes. So, in this case, we're just going to make them a little different. A little more slit-like. There we go. So let's get some clothing on our dude here. I really like the idea that these guys are the Hawaiian shirt dads of this region. These are the guys that walk around, button shirt open, just letting it all hang out, just vibing. So let's go with that. And also, very quickly, before I go any further, I should probably catch this. There we go. Get some vines up in here. There we go. There we are. So we got that. Let's just get a little more bark towards the edge. And sometimes in order to really like draw trees and stuff like that, you just sort of had to draw the wood texture on it. It helps a lot, actually, to just quickly fill out that color, to fill out that shape. There we go. Okay, so we got something there. Let's get the quick brown. Go with that, like, sort of very deep, a little ruddier than their color. Like a mangrove wood kind of vibe. I'm going to do this as an overlay again. 75 will do. There we go. That reads as distinctly different than their own flesh color, which is kind of the goal. I need them to look a little bit different than that. There we are. And we're going to go for a slight smattering here. We're going to go back to our spray splatter situation. Get a little more moss on these. Cool. And now we can go back to our primary and get those vines. Then we can just sort of wrap these up here. So again, living in Summoner, everyone's got their own way of making by. For some, it's easier than others. For these guys, they're pretty well adapted to their environment, so they're probably not hurting for too much. Doesn't mean they're not perfect, but, you know. And we're just going to sort of hit this with a little more shadow here and there to sort of increase the illusion of depth. There we go. Cool. Now let's get some inking on this body. Actually, let's get the clothing. Let's get the clothing first. So let's see. I like the idea of a toga, almost. Not a full toga, but like that chest wrap kind of deal, you know? I think that would look pretty good. And I'm just going to say right now, as a person with a growing dad bod, growing dad pudge, we're going to sort of round it out a little bit. Let's make this roughly about a 65. So we're just going to sort of have like this partial cloth thing going on here. A partial loincloth. We're going to hit him with a blue later, but for now this will do. Like this is a start. And he probably's got the back of it there on the other side. We're going to do a wrap from left to right. Yeah, his left to our right. I kind of like the idea he's got like some gourds and stuff on his belt. And I also kind of want to do his little hooves fast before I forget. Yeah, there we go. Just some simple hooves. Funny enough, that actually gives this dude a lineage that tracks all the way to a lot of spirits, because a lot of spirits have hooves. So that kind of tracks. I like that. Nice hooves. Nice hooves, buddy. Keep them sharp. Keep them sharp, keep them groomed. Okay, so we got this. Let's get to our clothing now. We're going to go with a blue. Again, this is where we're going to start getting that blue in. I want that blue to be vibrant and beautiful. Want to hug this big guy? Yeah, he's definitely got that, hey, how you doing kind of vibe. How's it going? You know what he reminds me of? He's like a green, mossy, like, what do they call it again? Poogie? He's like a Poogie version of Dex from Star Wars. You remember that throwaway character that they had for like all of 5 minutes in episode 2 that Obi-Wan goes to talk to at the diner? Hey, that's a Kaminoan saber dart. Don't see too many of those around here. That's who this guy is. This guy is literally just Dex. It's the pig version of him. I love that, though. It has a good energy to it. Okay, so we're just going to hit this up in all the spots where it would be sort of a little more lit. And we can sort of hit this up a little more as we go. There we are. It's amazing what a little pre-shading can do for cloth texture, honestly. And then in the back, we're going to go with a nice dark blue, like a navy. To note this is in shadow, but it's still back here. Kind of want to give this guy a little more than just one color. So let's go with a nice black sort of striped effect through this. 75. Cool. And then we're going to just sort of go along here. We can go in there with the green. Because there's a part of me, it's like I really want to do like a floral print, like a Hawaiian shirt, but I'm not going to do that. That feels like that's a little too much for these guys. Can you add a dark purple? I usually avoid dark purple in these, usually, for one simple reason, and that's because of, this is a personal internal consistency thing. So, for those of you who don't know, the color purple is actually considered royalty for one simple reason. It's rare. In order to get purple, originally you had to use indigo, and indigo was very difficult to acquire. That's actually why, for at least certain courts, depending on where you were in Europe, if you wore purple, depending on the time of when you were doing it, you actually might get killed. A lot of people don't think of that, but, like, you were wearing the colors of the king. You were saying, I'm wealthy enough to buy clothing the king would wear. And that's dangerous. Now, granted, this is not a setting that has those same sort of structures, but I do think the rarity would be an issue for them. Because if you get blueberries, if you ever squeeze blueberries, that shit's, like, practically violet if you use that ink. Like, you might get, like, a really, really dark. But it's not blue. There's very few blue things in nature. So, blue is lapis lazuli, or, like, 1 or 2 shellfish. Indigo comes from a very rare plant. So, like, I try to avoid it for the most part. But there are summoners who do, in fact, wear indigo. Some of them, anyway. Because they can actually travel greater distances. So, purple is quite a viable color. Just in very sparing amounts. In this case, this keeper just has a very distinctive aesthetic to them. That dude's probably from somewhere wealthy, if he's affording that. So let's make this a paler green and a more vibrant green. Here we go, that'll do. There we go. Hopefully that made sense. I promise I'm not poo-pooing your ideas for the fun of it. I like your ideas. I usually do yes and, but in this case this is an internal rule I've had where I'm doing my best to avoid using that where I can. I don't always succeed, but I try. Okay, that works. And now we can go down to here, catch the trim of this in a green. Here we go. So got ourselves a nice shade of green here. I like that. I kind of want to do a simple, like, black smudging of, like, ink. I kind of think that would look cool. As, like, a way to denote these guys. Like, they literally treat their clothes like... almost like a ledger. I said 45, not 100. Jesus. There we go. We can sort of darken this a little more towards this side, because this is where things are going to get really dark. Okay, we can sort of shade this guy's arms a little more, add a little more definition to him. There we go. We're going to just sort of get in there and grab a little more of this brown here. There we are. Okay, let's get on to the teeth now. I kind of want this guy to have teeth. It's almost dog-like a little bit right now, so let's give him some teeth. Or at least some, like, tusks. I kind of want him to have tusks. We're going for, like, the classic orc trope. Let's do orc tusks. I think one set of tusks is strong enough. Let's go back to this. Let's yellow that out a little more. Here we go. And then we get over here. All right, let's widen that out a little more, especially to where the teeth have been used a lot. Cool. And we're just going to use this. Sort of denote the snout a little more. So who's got this dog-like thing going? He got that dog in him. There we go. So we got that. We got our snoot. Got our 15% here. And we're just going to add a little extra layering here, just to make that snout stand out a little more. There we go. So we got our pig dude here. Our pig-faced guy. Let's get him some coloration. I want to give him some blue. Some nice blue color. Let's give him some blue tattoos, some blue markings on him. So let's go with the usual colors. Again, I tend to stick with the emblematic structures that each of the different species use. So I'm going to inking. So for Hela, the usual parlance would be almost like an E, an inverted, rotated E. And for the record, each of these little pictograms actually has like a specific meaning. So like a mountain with roots deep into the earth, a gust of wind, a burning flame, and in this case, rain, driving rain. So in this case, we're going with a driving rain motif. I feel like having it literally go from like one arm here over. Or like one part of his tummy over, I think works. And we can cut down some of this as well. And usually I tend to have these going in like jags. They have a very like serpentine-y kind of rivery look to them. Then this will wrap up here. Well, how like roots grow through them. Do you post them on Patreon when done? Sorry for the interruption. I will be. Yes, they'll be posted up on Patreon specifically. If you're a paid member, you'll get a downloadable version. If you're not a paid member, then yeah, you know what? I'll do it public. I'll do it public, but I will have it where the Patreon members actually will get it without like a major watermark. So it's to make my life a little easier. If I don't mind people downloading my stuff, I don't want them to, for the record, ever use it for anything AI. If you ever use it for anything AI, I will find you. I will end you. I will murder you. No, I will... in Minecraft. I'll murder you in Minecraft, of course. Obviously. In Roblox, right? Like, you know, Apex Legends. But, in reality, seriously, don't do that. That said, if you want to download it, though, and just enjoy it as a poster or something, or just have the picture, I will have that available for folks who purchase. And for those who don't, you can still enjoy it. So, thank you for bringing that up, though. Eventually, my goal is that when Summoner and Legacy are both done, I'll have them both available for just to download on my Patreon. But here's the trick with that. In order for that to happen, my Patreon needs to be doing well enough. And right now, it's doing okay, but I need to be able to make a little more money on it. So, bear that in mind. This is how I get away without doing one of those stupid, I'm going to raise a bunch of money fundraisers. More or less. I wonder if I can. I wonder if I should. I could do like he has the E on his snoot. Nah, I don't like that. That doesn't look good. It interferes too much. Though there's a part of me that likes the idea of it. I don't think that works pretty well. I won't. I know, Koopa. You're good. You're good. Anyone who's currently paying me on Patreon, yeah, by all means, thank you guys, all of you who do. You're all incredible. You literally are the reason I'm able to do this, and it means a great deal, so thank you all. We're going to leave the blue off his face here. I think if I do it, I'll do it on the top of his snoot. Going down. Almost like rainwater. I kind of like that look. Or better yet, we'll just do Hell is Tears. I haven't done that in a while. There we go. There we go. We got it. Cool. Fenfolk Forager. And in terms of what our dude here has got for his stats, Wave Strider and probably Earth Listener, honestly. I like the idea of them having Tremor Sense. They just can't be surprised. That, or we just give them a huge buff to their endurance. I feel like that's appropriate. Yeah, we'll give them a buff to their endurance. So we're going to grab that color. And we're going to grab that. There we go. Cool. As far as our abilities, we're going to have Stone Listener, Earth Listener, and I'll move these down further. I don't like where they're positioned. He's a little too wide for me to work around him. We'll do it here. He's got a big space over here. I almost forgot his little pouch. I need to handle his little pouch. And then we have over here, the other one is going to be Wave Strider. These guys know how to swim. gives them a swimming speed. Cool. And now we're going to get to our clothing. We're going to hit that up with a nice bit of that wood shade we had going on over here. Let's just very quickly, at 45%, there we go. Cool. Then we're going to get in here, just do a little bit of like... a little bit of that texture. Cool. And then we can sort of get this around here. Kind of like the idea of him having it sort of lashed up, like it's a water skin. There we go. Now we can hit this with a nice shade of shadow. I said shadow here. Thank you. Let's do this with an overlay. Put that at 15 or 10% so I can get a little more shadow on that. There we go. Our boy here, our Fenfolk Forager, is complete. Huzzah. I like that. He turned out pretty good. And that, my friends, is how to make a character in very little time in Summoner. In terms of one final thing, they do tend to wear masks when they're Summoners to give them that disguise. So these are just like normal folks who just live here. They're just vibing. So yeah, see. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's pretty much what we got here today. So I want to thank everyone who tuned in. We got a fair bit done. So we've got ourselves a Fenfolk Forager, and we got ourselves a Fire Peak Stoutkin. And in terms of scale, one is way bigger than the other. I figure the Fenfolk Forager is like double the height of the Stoutkin. Stoutkin are small. But yes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It means the world to me. Truly it does. Thank you all for being here for this. I haven't done a TTRPG art stream on here for a while. And every once in a while I worry that the only things people are interested in is my webcomics. And it's nice to see that there's still some interest in the TTRPG work I'm doing. Expect more of these in the future. But we'll probably be back to working on webcomics next week. This is just a nice way to wring my brain out. Lots of anxiety, lots of brain fog, lots of art block, and this has been a really fun way to shake that loose. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of you. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Trust me, it helps things go. It makes this a lot easier to work with. And otherwise, take care, Voyagers. And I'll see you in the shade of Olan. Peace.